Hi. People are lying to you. And that lie sounds something like this. If you're trying to be consistent in something, then make a schedule and through the power of self-discipline, religiously stick to it. And then you'll be successful, no matter what. This sounds great in theory. It's just that when the inevitable, called life, happens and you fall off the bandwagon, you feel like a lazy failure. And all the lie offers you is that it's your own fault. You weren't disciplined enough, right? Wrong. A perfect schedule looks great on paper, but unfortunately, that's all where it will ever stay. And when we define consistency as sticking to a strict schedule, we set ourselves up for failure. But to understand where we go wrong in our thinking, we first have to define what consistency actually means. When we say we need to be consistent at something, we mean that we need to make a repeated effort over an extended period of time. And this can mean making something a habit or making a schedule, but it doesn't need to, and I argue that it actually shouldn't. A schedule is an attempt at creating control in an uncontrollable world. In a perfect world, we'd be able to plan what we're gonna do on the third Thursday of May 3 years from now. But we can't. Life has its up and downs, no matter whether we want to admit it or not. First of all, we all have responsibilities in the real world, and they tend to show up unannounced and on a tight schedule. If my friend is sick and needs me to pick up medicine for her right now, then I can't direct her to a free slot on my calendar 4 days out. Secondly, 50% of the world population has a monthly cycle, and if you, like me, belong to those 50%, then you know that your life goes through many phases during that period of time alone. Deciding you're gonna do the same thing every Tuesday morning assumes that you'll have the same energy available every Tuesday morning. And if you're going through hormonal changes or fatigue, that idea is funny at best and cruel at worst. And obviously, this point applies not only if you have a monthly cycle, but if you suffer with any type of health challenge ever. And the last reason why schedules don't work the way we want them to is because they are difficult. After the initial excitement of following them and making progress wears off, they quickly become tiresome. And they are also at odds with life. If my friend from overseas is visiting my town for 2 days, then I'm not gonna decline dinner with her in favor of sitting on my laptop all evening just because I decided 1 year ago that was what I was gonna do every Wednesday evening. None of these circumstances make it impossible to keep a schedule. There are certainly ways to do that. I just argue that it's nothing to aspire to. And that's because your ability to keep a schedule over a long period of time largely depends on your level of self-discipline. And discipline just isn't all it's cracked up to be. Like consistency, the issue isn't so much the thing itself, but rather what we perceive it to mean. By discipline, we mean our ability to force ourselves to do things we don't want to do, like getting up to work out when we'd rather stay in our warm bed, and sitting down to write our novel when we'd rather be watching a show. And this is a very useful skill to have in a crisis. Because when all that's left in your account is rent money, then you want to be able to refrain from spending it on stupid things you don't need. But discipline isn't a one-size-fits-all skill. Just like cops don't walk around all day wearing bulletproof vests, we can't rely on discipline to manage our daily lives. Because discipline inherently means overcoming our resistance. Fighting resistance is like rowing upstream. Yes, we might make some progress, but the majority of our energy is spent just trying not to backslide. So in the end, we're mostly just staying still. This kind of uphill battle puts us at a disadvantage from the beginning. To keep going, we have to spend willpower, but willpower is more depletable than we'd like to think. No matter how much you exercise it, at the end of the day, we're all human. That means we all slip up. And the more you force yourself to do something, the sooner that day will come. That's because something interesting happens in our minds when we force ourselves to do something. Whatever it is we're doing, we'll begin to see it as a chore. And this applies even if we're doing something we would normally enjoy. That's because subconsciously, your mind will begin to associate the activity with drudgery. And this shouldn't really be surprising because no one likes being told what to do. Not even, and maybe especially not, from ourselves. Discipline gets us through the tough seasons in life. It's one of the many tools in our toolbox. But just because you have a hammer doesn't mean everything is a nail. We need discipline to survive, but when we want to thrive, we need something else. Humans are very simple creatures. There are 2 major driving factors behind our behavior. We like to feel good, and we don't like to feel bad. Remember how I said that consistency is making a repeated effort at something over an extended period of time? That means that the easiest way to be consistent at something is to enjoy it. And no, I'm not telling you to only do what you love, because realistically, there are a lot of things in our daily lives we have to do that we do not love. But that doesn't mean that we have to torture ourselves through them via discipline. Because while our nature might be simple, our minds are incredibly complex. And I think the most fascinating thing about them is that we have control over our perception of things. Meaning, through the power of perception, we can control whether we like something or not. You do it all the time. Just think about how you recount your average workday. Don't you feel your coworkers grow more annoying and your boss more terrible with every retelling? That's you making them more terrible with your focus on how terrible they are. It's easy to focus on negativity because that's kind of what our brains are supposed to do. They are wired to prioritize information that points to potential threats. This negativity bias used to help us be alert to predators and environmental hazards. But now it's ruining our lives. If negativity is what we are wired to notice, it means it's not our objective reality. Meaning we have the ability to overcome these primitive instincts by choosing to enjoy things. And yes, I'm telling you, it's a choice whether you enjoy something or not. This might be tough to swallow, and I'm not saying it's easy to change your perception of things. But what I am saying is that it's immensely empowering. By taking control of your perception of things, you stop being dependent on outer circumstances. You decide how you respond to life rather than react to it. But how does this help us with consistency? We all have skills and passions that make us forget about time. These are activities we could get lost in for minutes to hours. We don't have to try to be consistent at them. They are part of who we are. These become obvious when we have a lot of time off. The first week of vacation, I usually just spend rejuvenating and resting. But after that period of rest, I naturally pick up the activities that are important to me. These are writing, spending time with friends, creating art. I don't have to decide to do them. I just do. But what does that mean for consistency? It means that the activities we want to be consistent at have to become part of our identity. That way we don't have to create an artificial schedule that we're destined to break. And we don't have to grind away at our willpower every time we're doing them. Instead, we utilize our mind's power of perception. And the process itself is very simple. Implementing it is more difficult. Every time you perform the activity you're trying to be consistent at, you have to be completely present. Not stuck in your head trying to figure out what to do. Not thinking about yesterday's argument or tomorrow's meeting. Just completely present. And as you settle into presence, you should focus on what you're enjoying about the experience. For example, as I'm filming this, I'm enjoying that I get to wear this blouse I got while I was visiting a friend in Amsterdam. I'm enjoying that the room is a pleasant temperature. And it's autumn right now, my favorite season. So through the window I'm sitting in front of, I can see the darkening foliage on the trees across the street. And so on and so on. The magical thing is that as you start doing this, you'll discover more things you enjoy about the experience. Hold up, you might now be saying. All of what you just mentioned has nothing to do with the activity itself. It's all just about the environment. And that's true. But it doesn't matter. Because what matters is that I'm programming my brain to associate the activity of filming with pleasant sensations and emotions. Remember how I said that all humans want to do is feel good? By focusing on what I feel good about while doing this activity, I'm making myself look forward to it. I'm essentially tricking myself, just as one might trick a pet into taking its medication, into doing what I need to do. But instead of feeding myself tasty treats, I make the thing itself the treat. Like I said, very simple, but now try implementing it. This isn't a one-size-fits-all solution because nothing ever is, but it's a way of taking the pressure off of ourselves. Instead of fighting our nature, we allow ourselves to be human. Consistency shouldn't be another excuse for failing to live up to an unrealistic ideal. It should be a way of making time for the things that matter to you. True consistency isn't showing up perfectly every time, it's showing up again after you failed to do so before. One way to acknowledge that we're human and not disciplined robots is to understand that we don't like boring things. We want life to be interesting. And one of the ways to do that is to look at personal development through the lens of video games. That's why in my last video, I'm sharing some really powerful life lessons I learned from role-playing games. If you feel like you're not acting like the main character of your life, be sure to check out that video. My name is Zhenya. Thank you so much for spending time with me, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye!